Hi, I'm Ash from DroningON. Remember the Elfie E50 from Eachine? Then there was the E55. Well, Eachine have done it again. It's folding, it's called the E52-TX, and this time it has a transmitter as well. Eachine continue to evolve their products with each release. They're not quite ready to build their own version of Dobby or even the DJI Spark, but they're certainly warming up with products such as the E52, which we'll be reviewing today, courtesy of Banggood. It doesn't have a great camera and the live stream is a little bit latent, but it's great fun, it's perfect for the beginner, and for under $36 or £32, you can't really complain. Enjoy the review, links to the products are in the video description, give the video a thumbs up and comment below with your thoughts. Also, click that subscribe button. Enjoy the review. Kindly sent to us from Banggood, this is the next in the line of Eachine folding drones. Unfortunately, it's not a premium product, it is another budget folding drone, but let's have a look at it anyway and see what it can do. Packaged quite nicely, this is the E52-TX. Now it comes in two versions. There's an RTF version which includes the transmitter and that's priced at $36, which is about £33. There's also a bind and fly version which doesn't come with a transmitter and you use your mobile phone, and I think that's around $30, which is about £27. So it's packaged really nicely. The box looks quite smart. It does say on the website that this has a built-in positioning system, but it doesn't have GPS, so don't let that confuse you. It also says on the box HD cam, which is a little bit naughty because it doesn't. It has a 0.3 megapixel camera, which is obviously quite low resolution, but this is a very budget drone. It's just for fun. Looking inside the box, we've got the usual bits. So in this bag, we've got a USB charger, a prop removal tool, and also some spare props, which is good. We've got a manual, so a very basic beginner's manual here, which is going to show us the functionality of the drone, another instruction manual, and there is the drone. Now, any of you think that that looks slightly familiar? There's my Wingsland S6. Now clearly that's been an inspiration for this design. Obviously the S6 is a little bit fatter and chunkier, but this has a lot more tech packed into it, including 4K. But obviously they've been inspired by the Wingsland S6, and I guess that's not a bad thing. But yeah, there is the drone. So we've got folding arms here. We'll have a look at that in a minute. Also in the box is a transmitter. This is quite a nice transmitter actually. They've taken some inspiration from DJI with this transmitter, I would suggest, from the rounded shape of it. It's not your average cheap looking transmitter, although it does feel a bit lightweight. Looking at the back of that, it requires 4 AA batteries, which you obviously have to supply yourself. Lots of buttons on here. We'll have a look at what all of these do in a short while. We also get a stand which connects into the back of the transmitter, and you can then mount your mobile phone onto that. So that just slides in like that, and then it looks like your mobile phone can clip in, so it supports a number of different sizes there. So just as an example, there's my Samsung S7 and it fits in there quite nicely actually. So a closer look at the drone now. So it's very, very lightweight. It weighs virtually nothing. The battery's actually installed already on the underside. So on the top, we've got a power button here and the Eachine logo. It's very smooth actually, the material, very nicely made, and it does remind me a little bit of the E55 that we reviewed last week. We've got some Wi-Fi text here, and then this is a illuminated section, which is also soft and slightly rubberized. That will light up when we power it up, as you'll see. On the front, we've got the camera. Now, this camera is microscopic. Unfortunately, this is probably going to be the downside, the biggest downside of this drone. It's only a 0.3 megapixel camera, so you can't really expect impressive video or photos from this drone. One positive thing about the camera, however, is that it does tilt. So you can see we've got a little bit of movement there, not lots, but enough. It actually tilts just as much upwards as it does down, which is a bit pointless because it's now pointing towards its own cover. But hey, nice design. But at least there is tilt there, so that whilst you're having fun with this, you can at least point the camera down towards you so that you can actually capture some form of a selfie. Looking at the rear, we've got another rubberized LED section here, which will light up when we power up the drone. On the underside, we've got the folding arms. So this is very similar to the Elfie E50, which you'll remember we actually thought was really impressive for a budget drone. This is basically an evolution of that model, but it does feel better built. It's slightly heavier, but it does feel like it's going to resist crashes far better than the quite delicate E50. So with the arms extended, we can now see how they've developed the motor and prop system here. So again, we've got a gearbox system as we had on the E50, where the motors are actually running parallel down the length of the arm with a gearbox at the end to power and drive the prop. Finally, we've got the battery in the centre underneath. Now, do you remember the Elfi E50? It was kind of a really fiddly, awkward battery flap, and you had to manually plug in the battery via the little cable. It was a bit of a pain and a little bit hit and miss. This battery you remove by squeezing on both sides and pulling, and the battery slots out really easily. The battery has a built-in connector, so there's no more fiddling around with wires. As I say, this really is an evolution of the E50, which consequently is why this is called the E52. So the battery is nice and easy to install, and with it unplugged, we can now plug that into the USB charger and get it ready to fly. So a quick look at the transmitter now. Obviously we've got the usual on the left hand side, the throttle and the rudder, the aileron and the elevator. Now one thing to note actually is that the throttle is sprung loaded on this for some reason. Now this has a barometer, which means that the quad will automatically maintain its own altitude. That's probably why this is designed as more of a drone than a flying quadcopter, which you're going to be flying manually yourself. So after you launch the drone, you're generally going to launch it up to altitude automatically. Then you'll be able to press and hold up and let go, and it will hold the altitude that you leave it at. On the right hand side of the transmitter, we've got the fine tuning controls. So these 4 buttons basically trim the left, the right, the forwards and the backwards. So that if your quadcopter's drifting left or right, you can press one of those buttons and that will trim it. It's a shame that these aren't logically positioned. You'd expect 2 to be here and 2 to be here, which is a bit odd. On the left hand side, we've now got, going from the top to bottom, headless mode, which is obviously where the quad will rotate left and right without changing direction as you move it forwards and backwards. Next one down is the 1 key return, which you press and hold and the quad will do its best to come back to you. Yeah, doesn't always on these, unfortunately. Next one down is to take a photo, and then below that is to take video. Then we've got the shoulder buttons. So the one on the right hand side here is the 360 flip mode. So as with all the Eachine aircraft, press and hold it, you'll get a beep, you then press one of the directions once and it will do that little stunt. The other one is an emergency stop. Now it's good to see this. We haven't seen this on a transmitter for an Eachine before, I don't believe, but basically press and hold that and it will turn off all the props. Good to see that safety feature. Too many quads these days lack that critical feature. Very discreetly hidden in the centre of the transmitter are 2 additional buttons, which you can very easily miss if you're not careful. They are these 2 here. The left-hand one will start the ascent of the quadcopter, so automatic takeoff. The one on the right is the automatic land. Worth noting as well that when you do press automatic land, you still maintain control of the quad, so that if it's coming down and about to hit something, you can actually move it out of the way. So with our battery now fully charged, it's ready to snap back into place, which is very easy to do. Much easier than the old Elfi E50. We're now going to turn the quadcopter over, press and hold the power button. See, we've got flashing lights now, and after a very short time, the Wi-Fi signal will be emitted. And you can see that that's now happening via the slower flashing LEDs. As mentioned earlier, the transmitter doesn't include batteries, so you'll need to install 4 AA batteries. I would expect them to last quite some time in this transmitter, but just remember to turn it off when you're not using it. Install those, turn the transmitter over and press the power button to turn it on. You can hear it beeping to tell us that it's ready to be used, and actually the quad light has now stopped flashing as well, so it looks like we are bound. Now from this point we could fly it with just the transmitter. We don't need to connect the app, which is really good. However, if we do now want to connect the app, we simply do this. You'll remember from the other Eachine budget quadcopters that they utilised an app called Wi-Fi UFO. Well, the E52 uses the same app. I'm using Android and you can download the app from the Google Play Store. Just search for it and then click install, accept the app permissions and then wait for the install to finish, which should take just a couple of seconds. Once complete, click open to launch the app. The app then toggles into landscape mode, just click play to get into the cockpit. At this point we need to connect our smart device to the drone. It emits a Wi-Fi signal and so we need to search for new wireless networks. You'll see a network called Wi-Fi UFO listed. Click on it to connect and wait for it to establish connection. Once connected, you can switch back to the app where you'll see a live video feed from the drone. If we move the drone around, you'll see slight latency between the drone and the live feed, but it's really not that bad quality. Now that we're connected, you can install the smart device into the holder of the transmitter, which makes it all look and feel pretty good. I'll just demonstrate the latency once again. It's precisely the same as the E50 and E55 at around 500 milliseconds, which is acceptable for flying slowly outdoors via FPV. For indoors, this might pose a challenge. But now it's time for the flight test. So here we are on an absolutely beautiful day, but there is a bit of a wind, so we're going to have to see how it goes. Got my Eachine 52 here, so I'm going to first of all start by unfolding the arms. They don't click out necessarily into place, but they feel fairly rigid there. Put the battery in and then turn it on. So press and hold the power button on the top. Is it on? Yep, okay, it's hard to tell it's on because there's not actually any sound emitted from it. So you just get the light flashing on the back. We've got the light flashing green on the front. I think you can just about see that. And it should start hopefully giving off a Wi-Fi signal very soon. So I'm going to, first of all, on my mobile phone, open up the Wi-Fi settings. And there we see it, Wi-Fi UFO. Connected to it, and next then start up the Wi-Fi UFO app. Now this is the same app that we've used with the Elfie, the E55, all the other Eachine budget quadcopters, so it's going to be quite a familiar interface. There you go, we've got a live feed now, so you can see a live feed from the actual quadcopter. Not beautiful quality, but then this camera is only a 480p camera, I believe, and it's a live stream back to the mobile phone. So I'm now going to also turn on the transmitter. Press the button on that. So in theory, if I now press the go button, take off, it should lift off. And up it goes, it's in the air. So this one has altitude hold, which means in theory it should hold its altitude once I've set it. So I'm not touching the throttle control at all now, and it is indeed holding its altitude really well. And considering there's quite a breeze here, that's pretty good actually. Now I'm going to start video recording as well. And I do that by pressing on the app. So video's now recording. I'm going to turn it around to me to say hello. There we go. Now remember, this does not have any stabilization or a gimbal. The camera is very low resolution, but you get what you pay for. This thing is super cheap. And actually it's very stable considering it's quite a wind out here today. It's doing really, really well. The transmitter's really nice and sensitive on it. And as you can see from the live stream, we're getting video from this as well. So let's take it up a little bit higher. This is Wi-Fi controlled, so the range is probably going to be about 50 to 100 meters. See, we've still got the live stream up there going. Let's fly it around a little bit. Now, because it has no gimbal, no stabilization, you do have to fly this fairly gently. And that's easier said than done. And that's not doing too bad at all, actually. Quite impressed by that. Going to bring it down a bit lower. But let's take a photo down low. Okay, and there we go. Taking a few there. Remember also, that doesn't have an SD card, so photos and other video elements are all captured and stored on the mobile phone. Now what I'm going to try is changing the sensitivity on the app. So I'm using a mixture of the transmitter and the touch screen of the app here to control the drone. I'm going to change the sensitivity up from 30 to 60. See if that makes any difference to the drone. Not a lot. Change it up to 100. Now that hasn't made any difference. Now I can't recall if we have sensitivity controls on the transmitter. I'm just going to quickly look at the instructions whilst I'm flying it. Fine tuning, flip-flops. Headless mode, no, it doesn't look like we do, so that's a shame. Looks like you're fixed with sensitivity. Now on a slightly breezy day like today, you might struggle to get it back to you on that basis, but still, this is really, really quite controlled. And the altitude hold is very good. So if I just test that, there, so I'm not touching the throttle right now. If I push it down, oh, it crashes. Okay, not so impressive. I think the reason there is that I pushed it down to the ground, but it doesn't natively have enough power to actually recover quick enough before it hit the ground. So the props came off there. They are just push on. I've put them back on now. Let's take off again. Let's see if we can take off from my hand. That'll be exciting. Okay, here we go. Yeah, very cool. Right, we'll try that again. So if I push it up and it stabilizes back to the altitude it was at. So it's got a really good altitude. This is super budget as well, so I'm quite impressed by that. We'll try the down test again. Not touching the controls, and it goes back up to the altitude, and there you go, maintains its hover. Very impressed. Okay, so we do actually have a sensitivity control here. If I press the top shoulder button, that's actually sensitivity, which is different to actually what it said in the manual. So now you can see, whoa, okay, nearly hit myself with it then. It really was flying. Ah, crashed. We do have an emergency shut-off button somewhere on here. There we go. So that didn't go quite too successfully. So it is a really nice, gentle flyer, this, but it hasn't got loads of power. So if you do push it to the extreme, you might struggle to save it. Okay, let's take off again from my hand. That's very cool. That works very nicely. I've crashed it a few times. It's pretty robust, as you can see. So yeah, it looks like that shoulder button is sensitivity. So the manual is slightly wrong there, I think. Don't know where our flip button is based on that. Quite odd. But, well, let's take it up again and get a bit of altitude. So overall, I would say this is a really nice, gentle flyer, probably best suited for indoors in a big space, but even outdoors in this breeze, as you can see today, I'm getting a nice long flight. Oh, it's actually come down and the motors have shut off. I think that's the end of our battery. So overall, considering how much this costs, it's definitely better than the Elphi E50. It's definitely better than the E55. And I would say with the combined package of the transmitter, this is actually a really fun little quadcopter. So I hope you enjoyed the review. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up, comment below with your thoughts, and links to this quadcopter are in the video description. And of course, keep subscribing. Thank you very much for watching.